A woman was advised by her doctor to take a supplement every day to regain her energy. But what happened next changed her life forever, in a way no one could have imagined. Amid surprising discoveries, emotional challenges, and unexpected connections, this is a story about courage, transformation, and the true meaning of rediscovering yourself. Get ready, because this story will touch your heart. Subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and tell us where you're watching from. Helena Carvalho adjusted her glasses on her nose and stared at the small package of capsules on the kitchen table. The Saturday morning silence was broken by the harsh sound of her daughter Mariana's voice echoing through the house. "Mom, are you really not going to stop this obsession with natural remedies?" Mariana appeared in the kitchen, still in her pajamas, her hair tousled, and an expression of exasperation that Helena knew well. "That's 3 different supplements this month. Dr. Henrique said you don't need any of that." Helena felt the heat rise to her neck. At 67, after a lifetime of raising 3 children on her own and building a career as an elementary school teacher, she didn't expect to have to justify her decisions to anyone, least of all to Mariana, who had moved back home after her divorce and seemed determined to control every aspect of her mother's life. "Dr. Henrique isn't my doctor, Mariana. Doctor Caldas has been treating me for 15 years, and he was the one who recommended these capsules." Helena took the package firmly, feeling her hands tremble slightly. "He said they can help with energy and overall well-being." Mariana rolled her eyes and poured herself some coffee. "Energy? Mom, you have more energy than I do. You stay up late painting, you go for walks on the beach every day, you go to the library. What energy do you need?" The question cut deep. Helena looked out the kitchen window, where she could see the sea of the small village of Aguas Claras stretching to the horizon. Seagulls flew in lazy circles, and the salty scent mixed with the perfume of hibiscus flowers from the garden wafted in through the half-open window. It was a scene that always calmed her, but at that moment, it only intensified her feeling of loneliness. "You don't understand, Mariana." Helena put the capsules away in the cupboard, out of her daughter's judgmental eyes. "Since I retired, I feel like a part of me has been lost. It's not about physical energy. It's about feeling alive again." "Oh, for God's sake!" Mariana slammed her cup down on the saucer. "You're alive, Mom. You have your health. You have this beautiful house. You have grandchildren who adore you. Why can't you be grateful for what you have?" Her daughter's condescending tone made Helena clench her fists. It was always like this. Her needs, her feelings, her desires were minimized or ignored, as if, at 67, she no longer had the right to seek something new, to want to experiment, to try to rediscover herself. "Being grateful doesn't mean settling, Mariana." Helena's voice came out firmer than she expected. "I raised you 3, worked for 40 years, took care of your grandmother until she died. Now that I finally have time for myself, why is it wrong to want to explore new possibilities?" Mariana crossed her arms, assuming the defensive posture she had adopted since childhood when she felt upset. "Because these new possibilities are dangerous. You don't know what's in those supplements. What if they're bad for you? What if they interact with your other medications?" "I don't take any other medications." Helena exploded, her frustration finally overflowing. "My blood pressure is normal, my cholesterol is fine, my tests are all up to date. Why do you insist on treating me like I'm a confused old woman?" The words hung in the air like an accusation. Mariana recoiled, clearly surprised by her mother's vehemence, but quickly regained her stubborn expression. "It's not that, Mom. It's just that—" She paused, running her hand through her hair. "It's just that I worry about you. Since Dad died, you've been trying to fill a void with these experiments. First it was painting, then the literature courses, now it's supplements. When are you going to accept that life has changed?" The blow was devastating. Helena felt as if she had been punched in the stomach. The mention of Roberto, her husband who had died 3 years earlier, always left her vulnerable. But hearing from her own daughter that her attempts to rebuild her life were just pathetic ways of filling a void was devastating. "How dare you?" Helena began, but her voice failed her. Tears stung her eyes, but she refused to let them fall in front of Mariana. The silence that followed was heavy, laden with unspoken hurts and misunderstandings that had accumulated over the months since Mariana had moved back in with her. Helena looked at her daughter, her brown hair disheveled, her face still young at 42, but marked by the bitterness of her own divorce, and wondered when they had become strangers to each other. The discomfort in the kitchen was interrupted by a soft knock on the back door. Helena quickly dried her eyes and went to answer, grateful for the distraction. On the other side was Dona Eulalia, her 83-year-old neighbor, holding a basket of lemons with a warm smile on her wrinkled face. "Good morning, dear. I brought you some lemons from my tree. They're sweet, perfect for making lemonade." Dona Eulalia stopped when she sensed the tension in the air. Her sharp eyes, still bright despite her age, immediately picked up that something was wrong. "What's that look on your face? Did something happen?" Helena hesitated, but before she could answer, Mariana appeared behind her. "Dona Eulalia, you're just in time. Maybe you can convince my mother to stop taking those natural junk supplements she's been buying." Mariana nodded toward the cabinet where Helena had stored the capsules. Dona Eulalia's expression changed completely. She entered the kitchen without ceremony, placed the basket on the table, and turned to Mariana with a firmness surprising for someone her age. "Young lady, with all due respect, who are you to decide what your mother can or cannot take?" Dona Eulalia's voice was calm, but laden with authority. "Helena is an adult woman, intelligent and capable. If her doctor recommended something, she has every right to try it." Mariana blinked, clearly taken aback by the unexpected intervention. "But, Dona Eulalia, don't you think it's dangerous? These natural supplements—" "Dangerous?" Dona Eulalia laughed, a crystal-clear sound that filled the kitchen. "My dear, I've been drinking herbal tea for as long as I can remember. My grandmother lived to be 96, drinking homemade tonics and herbal remedies. What's dangerous is an adult daughter wanting to control her mother's life as if she were a child." Helena felt her heart race. She had never seen anyone confront Mariana like that, firmly, but without aggression. It was exactly what she wished she had the courage to do. "It's not control," Mariana protested, but her voice no longer sounded so convincing. "It's concern. My mother has been going through a difficult time since she retired, and I'm afraid that—" "What?" Dona Eulalia approached the table and sat down, motioning for the two women to do the same. "That she discovers new things about herself, that she finds pleasure in different experiences, that she allows herself to be curious and adventurous at 67? Helena sat down slowly, fascinated by how her neighbor articulated exactly the feelings she couldn't express. Mariana remained standing, clearly uncomfortable. "Let me tell you something," continued Dona Eulalia, her eyes sparkling with memories. "When I was Helena's age, my children also thought they knew what was best for me. They wanted me to sell this house and move into a small apartment, to stop driving, to stop traveling alone. Do you know what I did?" Helena and Mariana waited silently. "I told them to mind their own business, and continued doing exactly what I wanted to do. At 70, I learned how to use a computer. At 75, I started taking dance classes. At 80, I traveled alone to Europe for the first time in my life." She smiled with satisfaction. "And you know what? My children admire me for it today, because they realized that a happy and fulfilled mother is much better than a frustrated and controlled mother." Mariana finally sat down, her shoulders relaxing slightly. "But, Mrs. Eulalia, it's different. Those supplements were prescribed by a doctor Helena trusts." Dona Eulalia's voice softened, but remained firm. "And even if they weren't, she has the right to make her own choices and make her own mistakes. That's how you learn. That's how you live." Helena felt tears of gratitude well up in her eyes. Finally, someone understood. Someone saw her not as a confused old woman in need of protection, but as a woman with a right to autonomy and self-determination. "Mariana," Dona Eulalia turned to her youngest daughter, "I know you love your mother and want to protect her. But protection is not control. Love is not possession. Sometimes the best way to take care of someone is to give them the freedom to be who they really are." The silence that followed was different from before, no longer charged with tension, but with reflection. Helena looked at Mariana and saw, for the first time in months, uncertainty in place of her usual stubbornness. 2 weeks had passed since the conversation in the kitchen. Helena had started taking the capsules as instructed by Dr. Caldas, And Mariana, although still reticent, respected the tense silence that had settled between them. The house, which had once echoed with arguments, now breathed a fragile but necessary peace. Helena noticed the first changes during her morning walk along the shore. The salty scent of the sea, which had always been familiar and comforting, seemed more intense, more vivid. The colors of the sunrise reflected on the water took on nuances she had never noticed before. It was as if a veil had been lifted from her senses. At the weekly village market, where she used to buy fruit and vegetables, the experience became almost overwhelming. The voices of the market vendors, the jingle of coins, the sweet scent of ripe mangoes. Everything seemed amplified. Helena stopped in front of Sir Joachim's stall, the fruit seller she had known for years, and felt a strange familiarity, as if she knew his life story without ever having talked about it. "Dona Helena, are you all right? You seem a little different today," commented Sir Joachim, weighing the oranges she had chosen. "Different how?" Helena asked, genuinely curious. "I can't explain it. More present? As if you were seeing everything for the first time." The observation made her think. Maybe that was exactly it. She was seeing everything for the first time. Not just seeing, but feeling, absorbing, connecting with the world around her in a way she didn't remember ever experiencing before. At home, while preparing afternoon tea with cinnamon and fennel, a recipe she had learned from her mother, Helena was overcome by such an intense wave of nostalgia that she had to lean on the kitchen counter. It wasn't just a childhood memory. It was as if she were reliving those moments, feeling the soft touch of her mother's hand on her hair, hearing her voice humming as she prepared the same tea. "Mom?" Mariana's voice brought her back to the present. "You're crying. What happened?" Helena touched her own face, surprised to find tears. "I can't explain it. I was remembering your grandmother, but it wasn't a normal memory. It was as if she were here with me." Mariana approached her, her usual irritation replaced by concern. "Are you sure those capsules aren't doing you any harm? These symptoms, they're not symptoms," Helena interrupted softly. "They're sensations, emotions. It's like I'm waking up from a very long sleep." That night, Helena decided to call Dr. Caldas, not out of alarm, but out of genuine curiosity about what was happening to her. "Dr. Caldas, this is Helena Carvalho. I'm sorry to bother you after hours, but I wanted to know if it's normal to feel this intensity with the supplement you prescribed." "What kind of intensity, Ms. Helena?" The doctor's voice sounded interested, not concerned. "The colors seem more vivid, the aromas more intense, and today, while making tea, I felt as if my mother was with me. It's not a ghost." She laughed nervously. "It's more like a very strong emotional connection." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Ms. Helena, I would like you to come to the office tomorrow. It's nothing alarming, but there are some aspects of this supplement that I need to explain better." After hanging up, Helena remained in the living room, looking at the paintings she had done in recent months. They were landscapes of the village, portraits of people she had met on her walks, still lifes with flowers from the garden. But looking at them now, with this new heightened perception, she saw imperfections she hadn't noticed before, but also an energy, a life pulsing in every brushstroke. Mariana appeared at the door, holding 2 cups of tea. "Can I sit with you?" Helena nodded yes, surprised by her daughter's conciliatory gesture. "Mom, I need to apologize." Mariana sat down on the sofa next to Helena, handing her one of the cups. "Dona Eulalia made me think a lot about what she said. And today, seeing you cry over a memory of Grandma, I realized that maybe I've been too controlling." Helena held the cup carefully, feeling the warmth spread through her palms. "Mariana, I understand your concern. I really do. But I need you to understand that, for the first time in years, I feel like I'm finding myself again. It may be strange, it may be new, but it's not wrong. What if it's dangerous?" Mariana insisted, but her voice no longer had the harshness of before. "What if it's not?" Helena smiled. "What if it's exactly what I need to feel whole again?" They sat in silence, sipping their tea and watching the village lights come on one by one as night fell. Helena felt a strange peace, mixed with expectant anxiety. Something was changing inside her, something deep and transformative. And for the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid of the unknown. The next day, Helena left Dr. Caldis's office with more questions than answers. The doctor had been evasive, talking about natural adjustments of the body and individual reactions, without ever clearly explaining what was happening to her. Her frustration grew when he suggested that she just watch the effects, without giving her any further details about the supplement. She decided to walk around the village to clear her mind. Her steps led her naturally to the municipal library, an old stone building that had always been her refuge in times of unrest. The scent of old books and freshly brewed coffee welcomed her like a familiar embrace. "Dona Helena, how nice to see you here." Beatriz Menezes, the librarian, looked up from the books she was cataloging. In her 50s, Beatriz had gray hair always tied back in a loose bun and gold-rimmed glasses that gave her an intellectual air. She was known in the village for her passion for local history and her reserved nature. "Hi, Beatrice. I need a quiet place to think." Helena headed for her favorite armchair, near the window overlooking the library garden. "Can I help you with anything?" Beatrice approached, her soft voice echoing in the quiet room. "You seem different today. More, how can I put it, perceptive." Helena looked at the librarian with renewed interest. "What do you mean by that?" Beatrice hesitated, clearly weighing her words. "Well, it's just that you're not the first person I've known to experience this sensory intensity after starting to take certain supplements prescribed by Dr. Caldis." Helena's heart raced. "What do you mean? Other people have gone through this?" The librarian looked around, making sure they were alone, before sitting down in the armchair next to Helena. "Dona Helena, can I trust your discretion?" "Of course, Beatrice." "What is it about?" "In the last 2 years, at least 5 women from the village have come to this library looking for books on heightened sensory experiences, excessive empathy, intense emotional connections. All of them, without exception, were taking the same supplement that I imagine you are taking now." Helena leaned forward, fascinated. "And what happened to them?" "Some stopped because they couldn't handle the intensity. Others," Beatrice paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "Others disappeared from the community. Not literally, but they became more reclusive, distant. One of them, Dona Carmen, who lived on the street behind you, moved to the capital without any clear explanation." "Do you think there's something wrong with the supplement?" Helena asked, although part of her already knew she didn't want to stop taking it. "I don't know if it's wrong," Beatrice replied thoughtfully, "but it's definitely powerful, and Dr. Caldis was never very clear about its actual effects." Beatrice stood up and walked over to a specific bookshelf, returning with an old, worn leather volume. "This book documents traditional healing practices from our region. There are mentions of herbal compounds that were used to open the senses and connect souls. Some of these practices date back over a century." Helena leafed through the book, her fingers trembling slightly. The pages contained illustrations of plants she didn't recognize, and recipes written in old-fashioned handwriting. "Do you think Dr. Caldis's supplement is based on these ancient formulas?" "It's possible. Dr. Caldis has always been interested in traditional medicine, and his family has been in the village for generations. He likely has access to knowledge that has been lost over time." Helena closed the book, her mind racing with possibilities. "Beatrice, why are you telling me this? Why didn't you say anything to the other women?" The librarian sighed deeply. "Because I've also been taking the supplement for 3 months." The revelation hit Helena like a bolt of lightning. She looked at Beatrice with new eyes, noticing details she had missed before. The intensity of her gaze, the way she seemed to absorb every word, the aura of someone who was experiencing the world in an expanded way. "And how has it been for you?" Helena asked. "Transformative and scary at the same time." Beatrice sat down again, her hands clasped in her lap. "I can feel the emotions of the people who come in here. I can almost hear the thoughts behind the words they don't say. Sometimes it's a gift, other times it's a burden. And do you intend to continue?" "I don't know yet, but I know I want to understand better what's happening to us. That's why I started researching, documenting the experiences of women who have gone through this." Beatrice leaned forward. "Helena, Would you like to help me with this research? Together, maybe we can find out not only what Dr. Caldas is doing, but why he specifically chose women our age. Helena felt a mixture of fear and excitement. For the first time since she had started taking the supplement, she didn't feel alone in her experience. There were other people going through the same process, and maybe together they could find answers. Yes, she replied firmly. I want to help. I want to understand what's happening to me. Over the next 2 weeks, Helena and Beatrice met regularly at the library to research and document their experiences with the supplement. Helena discovered that her ability to feel the emotions of others was intensifying at an alarming rate. During a visit to the market, she passed by the young cashier, Luana, and was overcome by such deep sadness that she had to lean on the counter. Without thinking, she took the girl's hand and asked, "Are you okay, sweetie?" Luana looked at her in surprise, tears welling up in her eyes. "How did you know?" "I broke up with my boyfriend yesterday, but I haven't told anyone." Helena left the market feeling disturbed. How could she know things that people hadn't shared with her? How could she feel pain that wasn't hers? At home, the situation with Mariana became complicated. Her daughter had noticed the changes in Helena's behavior, the moments of deep absorption, the intense emotional reactions to seemingly trivial situations, the way she always seemed to be listening to something that others couldn't hear. "Mom, you're not well," Mariana said one night, finding Helena crying on the porch for no apparent reason. "Those capsules are bad for you. You need to stop." "I can't," Helena replied, wiping away her tears. "I tried to stop for 2 days last week and it was terrible. I felt like the world had lost its color, like I was dead inside." "This isn't normal, Mom. This is addiction." Helena knew Mariana was right, but she couldn't explain that the feeling of deep connection with the world around her was something she had never experienced before. It was as if, for the first time in her life, she was truly alive. The situation reached a breaking point when Helena woke up in the middle of the night, feeling an overwhelming anguish that wasn't hers. She got dressed quickly and left the house, guided by an impulse she didn't understand. She walked through the empty streets of the village until she stopped in front of Dona Eulalia's house. Something compelled her to knock on the door, even though it was 3 a.m. "Helena?" Dona Eulalia opened the door, clearly surprised. "What happened?" I don't know. I felt you needed me." Helena hesitated, realizing how strange her explanation sounded. Dona Eulalia studied her for a moment, then opened the door completely. "Come in, dear. I really needed some company." Sitting in the living room, Dona Eulalia revealed that she had spent the night awake, worried about her son who lived in São Paulo and hadn't answered her calls for 3 days. "How did you know?" she asked Helena. "I felt it." Helena didn't know how else to explain it. "It's as if your anguish called me." Dona Eulalia took Helena's hands in hers. "My child, there is something very special happening to you. My grandmother used to say that some people are born with the gift of feeling what others feel, but that this gift only manifests itself when the person is ready to carry it. But I don't want to carry other people's pain," Helena confessed. "Sometimes it's so intense that I can't distinguish what's mine from what's theirs. Maybe it's time you found someone who understands these things," suggested Dona Eulalia. "Do you know the former priest Miguel? He devoted himself to the study of spirituality and expanded human capabilities after he left the church." Helena knew Miguel by sight, a middle-aged man who had caused quite a scandal in the village when he left the priesthood to study Eastern meditation practices. He lived alone in a house in the hills, devoting himself to writing and spiritual guidance. "Do you think he could help me? If anyone can, he can. Miguel went through his own spiritual transformation a few years ago. He understands what it's like to have expanded perception and how to deal with it." Helena returned home as the sun was rising, finding Mariana waiting for her in the kitchen, visibly worried. "Mom, where were you? I woke up and you weren't home." "I thought I was with Dona Eulalia. She needed company." Helena sat down at the table, feeling the weight of the sleepless night. "Mariana, I need to tell you something. These capsules are changing more than just my energy. They're changing the way I perceive the world, the way I connect with people." Mariana sat down across from her, her expression serious. "What do you mean?" Helena spent the next hour telling her daughter about her experiences. the ability to feel other people's emotions, the intense memories that didn't seem to be hers, the deep connection with places and people. Mariana listened in silence, her expression gradually changing from skepticism to genuine concern. "Mom, this doesn't seem normal. You need professional help." "I know, and I will. Dona Eulalia told me about Miguel, the former priest. I think he can help me understand what's going on." Mariana hesitated, then nodded slowly. "If you think he can help, that's fine. But promise me you won't stop telling me what's going on. Promise you won't leave me out?" Helena reached out to her daughter. "I promise. And Mariana, thank you for caring about me, even when I'm stubborn." Miguel Santos lived in a simple wooden house in the hills surrounding Aguas Claras. At 50, he had gray hair that touched his shoulders and deep eyes that seemed to see beyond the surface of things. When Helena arrived at his door on a Thursday afternoon, he welcomed her as if he had been expecting her. "Helena Carvalho," he said, not as a question, but as a confirmation. "Beatriz told me about you. Please come in." The house was Spartan but cozy, with cushions on the floor, books stacked in corners, and the soft scent of sandalwood incense in the air. Miguel poured herbal tea into ceramic cups and sat down across from Helena, his legs crossed in the lotus position. "Tell me about your experience," he said simply. Helena recounted everything: the heightened senses, the ability to feel other people's emotions, the memories that didn't seem to be hers, the growing dependence on the supplement. Miguel listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding his head. "What do you know about the supplement you're taking?" he asked when she finished. "Very little. Dr. Caldas was evasive when I asked." Miguel stood up and took an old book from a nearby shelf. "This is a compendium of shamanic practices from the region. There are references to a compound called water of consciousness, made from local plants that grow only at certain times of the year." He opened the book to a marked page. "According to the records, this preparation was used by healers to expand perception and allow them to walk among the souls. It was considered a sacred tool, but also dangerous if used without proper guidance." Helena looked at the illustrations in the book, recognizing some of the plants from the drawings she had seen in the library. "Do you think that's what I'm taking?" "It's likely. The question is Dr. Caldas preparing you for this transformation, or is he just experimenting? How can I find out?" Miguel closed the book and looked her straight in the eyes. "Helena, you need to understand that you are going through a process of consciousness expansion. This can be an extraordinary gift, but it can also be devastating if not handled properly. You need to learn to control these abilities, not be controlled by them." "And how do I do that?" "First, you need to set energy boundaries. Learn to distinguish your emotions from the emotions of others. Second, you need to develop psychic protection techniques so you don't get overwhelmed by other people's pain." Miguel spent the next 2 hours teaching Helena basic meditation and visualization exercises. He taught her to imagine a bubble of golden light around her that allowed only the energies she chose to receive to enter. "Practice this daily," he instructed. "And if the intensity becomes unbearable, you have 2 options. Stop taking the supplement gradually, with my guidance, or learn to live with these expanded abilities. What are the risks of each option? If you stop abruptly, you may experience deep depression and a loss of meaning. If you continue without guidance, you may lose your sense of identity, absorbing so much from others that you forget who you are." Helena felt a chill. "And if I continue with guidance?" Miguel smiled for the first time since she had arrived. "Then you may discover a purpose in life you never imagined you had. You could become a source of healing and understanding for other people. But it will be a challenging path. I need to think about it." "Of course. But while you're thinking, keep practicing the exercises I taught you. And Helena?" He paused, his expression becoming serious. "Be honest with your family about what you're going through. They can't support you if they don't understand what you're going through." Helena returned home with her mind racing. She found Mariana in the kitchen preparing dinner, and decided to follow Miguel's advice. "Mariana, I need to tell you about my conversation with Miguel." They talked late into the night. Helena explained Miguel's theories about the supplement and the options she had ahead of her. To her surprise, Mariana listened with an open mind. "Mom, I know I've been very controlling in recent weeks, But now I understand that you're going through something much bigger than I imagined." Mariana took her mother's hands. "Whatever your decision, I'll support you. But promise me you won't face this alone." "I promise," Helena replied, feeling deep gratitude for her daughter's understanding. That night, for the first time in weeks, Helena slept soundly, dreaming of golden lights and a future she couldn't yet fully envision, but which no longer frightened her. 3 months had passed since Helena had started working with Miguel. The meditation and energy protection exercises had helped her significantly to control the intensity of her heightened perceptions. She still felt other people's emotions, but now she could distinguish between her own and those of others. During this time, her relationship with Mariana had completely changed. Not only had her daughter accepted Helena's new reality, but she had also begun to admire the wisdom and compassion her mother had developed. Mariana often sought Helena out for advice, recognizing that her mother had developed a special ability to understand people. "You know, Mom," Mariana said one Saturday morning as they had coffee on the porch, "since you started this journey, you've become a much more present person. Before, it seemed like you were always a little distant, as if part of you was somewhere else." Helena smiled, watching the seagulls flying over the sea. "I think I was. I had been living on autopilot for so long that I forgot what it was like to be truly alive." Helena's transformation had also impacted the village community. Without her realizing it at first, people began to seek her out for conversations, asking for advice, or simply seeking her calming presence. Dona Eulalia joked that Helena had become the unofficial psychologist of Aguas Claras. It was during the village's annual festival, when the streets were filled with music, colors, and the aroma of mulled wine, that Helena made her final decision about the supplement. The festival was a century-old tradition, celebrating the founding of the village with folk dances, traditional foods, and a large bonfire in the central square. Helena walked through the decorated streets, absorbing the collective emotions of joy and unity, but managing to keep her own identity intact. In the square, she found Dr. Caldas talking to a group of people. When their eyes met, he approached her with a cautious smile. "Mrs. Helena, how have you been feeling with the treatment?" "Dr. Caldas, I think we have a lot to talk about." Helena led him to a more private corner. "I know that the supplement you prescribed is based on ancient traditional formulas. I know that other women in the village have had experiences similar to mine." The doctor sighed, his expression becoming serious. "You've discovered more than I expected. Why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning?" "Because the truth is complex, Dona Helena. This compound was developed by my grandmother, who was a healer. She discovered that certain women, especially those who had experienced great loss or transitions in their lives, could benefit tremendously from this preparation. But the effects are so unique and intense that many people cannot handle them. And why did you choose to give it to me?" Dr. Caldas studied her for a moment. "Because I saw in you an inner strength that most people don't have. I saw a woman who, despite all her losses, still had the capacity to grow, to transform herself. But I admit I should have been clearer from the start." Helena nodded slowly. "Dr. Caldas, I've made a decision. I want to continue with the supplement, but on one condition. I want to help other women who go through this experience. I want to create a support group, a space where they can share and learn to deal with these transformations." The doctor smiled, clearly relieved. "I think that's an excellent idea. In fact, Beatriz has already approached me with a similar proposal." 2 weeks later, Helena launched what she called the Circle of Wise Women at the Municipal Library. The group met every Wednesday evening, offering a safe space for women who were going through profound changes in their lives, some taking Dr. Caldas's supplement, others simply navigating the natural changes of aging. Beatriz became her co-facilitator, and together they developed a program that combined meditation techniques taught by Miguel with discussions about self-acceptance, autonomy, and the right to reinvent oneself at any age. "You know," Helena said during one of the first meetings, looking at the circle of women sitting around her, "for a long time I thought that at 67 my life was already set, that I was who I'd always been, and would be until the end. But I discovered that it's never too late to be reborn." One of the participants, a 72-year-old woman named Rosa, raised her hand. "But Helena, aren't you afraid of changing so much? Of becoming someone different?" Helena smiled, remembering the conversation she had had with Mariana the previous morning. Her daughter had told her that, for the first time in years, she felt she had a mother who was truly present and connected. Rosa, I haven't become someone different. I've become who I've always been, but never had the courage to be. The difference is that now I'm not afraid to feel deeply, to truly connect with people, to admit that I'm still learning and growing. After the meeting, Helena walked alone along the waterfront, reflecting on the last few months. The supplement had only been the catalyst. The real transformation had come from her willingness to embrace the unknown, to question expectations about what it meant to grow older, to claim her right to autonomy and personal growth. At home, she found Mariana making tea for the two of them, a tradition they had developed to end their days. "How was your meeting today?" Mariana asked, handing her mother the steaming cup. "Transformative, as always." Helena sat on the porch, watching the stars begin to appear in the sky. "You know, Mariana, I've learned something important in the last few months." "What was it?" "I've learned that true love, whether it's from a daughter for her mother or a mother for her daughter, isn't about controlling or protecting. It's about giving the other person space to grow, even when that growth scares us." Mariana sat down next to her mother, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "Mom, I was so scared of losing you to this transformation that I almost lost you trying to stop it. But you didn't lose me," Helena said softly, taking her daughter's hand. "In fact, you found me, and I found you too. Before this transformation, we were both lost. Me in a purposeless retirement, you in a painful divorce. Now we have each other in a way we never had before." They stood in comfortable silence, listening to the sound of waves breaking on the distant shore. Helena felt a deep peace, not the artificial tranquility that came from the capsules, but a genuine serenity that came from accepting herself and being at peace with her daughter. "Mom," Mariana said finally, "can I ask you a question?" "Of course. Do you regret starting to take the supplement?" Helena thought carefully before answering. "I don't regret the decision to try something new. But I've learned that the real power wasn't in the capsules. It was in my courage to embrace change, to accept that I still had a lot to discover about myself. And now? Do you plan to continue taking them?" "For now, yes. But not because I need to, because I choose to. And when the time is right, I'll stop. Because now I know that my vitality, my connection to the world, doesn't depend on any supplement. It depends on my willingness to remain curious, open, and courageous." Helena raised her cup of tea, smelling the familiar aroma of cinnamon and fennel. There were no more overwhelming memories or uncontrollable emotional connections. There was only the present moment, lived fully, with gratitude and awareness. "Do you know what the biggest lesson I learned was?" Helena asked, looking up at the stars. "What was it?" "That it's never too late to start over. That every day is an opportunity to reinvent ourselves, to choose who we want to be. And that age is not a limitation. It's an advantage. At 67, I have the wisdom of experience and the freedom to be exactly who I am." Mariana smiled, squeezing her mother's hand. "Thank you for teaching me that. And thank you for showing me that true love sometimes means taking a step back and letting the person we love fly." Helena looked at her daughter, her brown hair shining in the starlight, her face relaxed for the first time in months, and felt a deep gratitude. The transformation had been painful, confusing, and sometimes scary, but it had been worth every moment of uncertainty. "Mariana," she said, "promise me something." "What?" "Promise me that when it's your turn to reinvent yourself, you won't be afraid. Promise me you'll embrace change, even if it's uncomfortable." "I promise, Mom." "And you promise you'll continue to be my inspiration?" Helena laughed, a crystal-clear sound that mingled with the sound of the waves. "I promise. But only if you promise you'll continue to be my brave, questioning daughter, even when that means confronting me when I'm wrong." "I promise." They clinked their teacups, sealing a pact of love, mutual respect, and growth together. Helena knew there was still much to discover about herself, her new skills, and the purpose she had found in helping other women. But for the first time in years, she was in no hurry. She had the rest of her life to continue growing, learning, and transforming. And as she watched the lights in the village go out one by one, Helena Carvalho smiled to herself. At 67, she had finally learned the art of living fully, and that, she discovered, was the greatest transformation of all. 3 years later, the Circle of Wise Women had become a reference in the region, attracting participants from several neighboring cities. Helena had written a book about her experience, entitled It's Never Too Late to Be Reborn, which became a bestseller among senior women. Dr. Caldas, inspired by Helena's work, began offering psychological counseling along with his unconventional treatments. But perhaps the greatest transformation was in the relationship between Helena and Mariana. They became not only mother and daughter, but true friends and companions on their journey. Mariana often attended the circle's meetings, learning alongside the other women about courage, self-acceptance, and the right to reinvent oneself at any age. And on quiet nights in Aguas Claras, when the scent of the sea mingled with the perfume of flowers in the garden, Helena would sit on the porch and give thanks for the day she decided to take those little capsules, not for the effects they had, but for the courage that led her to try them. Because it was that courage that taught her the most important truth of her life, that aging is not about decline, but about blossoming, and that each new day is an opportunity to become a more authentic and fulfilled version of herself. End of story.